So I'd like to express my gratitude for 84,000 granting me this opportunity to, I don't know, introduce is even the proper word, but anyway, speak about Bodhisattva, the Fortunate Eon Sutra. In the sutras, Buddhas and Bodhisattvas have said many, many times that even talking about these sutras, even having the sutra somewhere near you has so much merit and so much blessing. And here, our translators and scholars and editors, they put so much effort. For this, I rejoice and I offer my gratitude. I also offer my gratitude to all the sponsors and tireless administrators for making this happen. Now, sutra. To teach sutra, one need to be a sublime being. A sublime being who has reached at the least first bhumi. So it's therefore there are shastras. What I'm trying to say is I don't want to claim that I'm teaching this sutra. That is for my own safety. I cannot claim this. Well, I'm sure all of you know I'm a Buddhist. Trying to be, anyway. I try to practice Dharma. I guess what I'm trying to say is I will be speaking about this sutra as a follower of the Buddha Dharma, as someone who has most probably blind devotion. Like a lot of emotions, a lot of blind devotions, lots of, cultural baggage everywhere. So whatever I'm saying tonight is not going to benefit those who are here for scholastic reason, academic reason. I'm also not a translator. I think this is one job. I don't think I can do it in this life. Maybe in my next life, I can have aspiration to become one. So I don't know how much what I'm going to say tonight will benefit the translators. But nevertheless, as a follower of the Buddha and someone who is trying to practice the Dharma, and to celebrate with all our fellow Dharma friends, brothers, sisters, I'm really happy to celebrate last of the many, many new years the Tibetan Losser, with this discussion on Fortunate Eon Sutra, Dodekapasangpo. As Andrea rightly said, this is a very, very big sutra, big in the sense of actually physically. It's actually visibly big, a lot of pages. I'm quite, I should not say familiar, but I may have read the sutra maybe 10, 20 times, maybe more. This is just because, you know, I was raised in a very sort of traditional setting. So when I was raised, my teachers, they raised me with a hope that I will become some sort of a stakeholder, a Rinpoche, a lineage holder. And that involves giving what we call reading transmission. And from a probably the first ever training that we received, very young, we are talking like 5 years old. The first thing they teach you is fast reading. You know, that's the first training we got. It's a really, really hard one. And Dodekapasangpo, this sutra was used, especially with me. My teachers, they used this sutra to teach me, you know, like the fast reading skill. So because of that, I have read this sutra for, yes, many, many times. And I have to say, even though at that time, not all the meanings, you know, of course, most of the meaning, I wasn't even thinking about the meaning. But because the contents of the sutra is so beautiful and very touching, lots of sort of short events and segments of stories of the bodhisattvas. So I do remember having a lot of sort of sentimental feeling. I don't remember which Buddha and which Bodhisattva, okay? I remember quite clearly this Bodhisattva, this person who wanted to take the Bodhisattva vow. And as an auspicious gesture, usually the one who wished to take the Bodhisattva vow need to offer something, whatever, to the master who gives the precept. And there's one segment where this person who was a very poor, but yet really wishing to offer something. And this master that he was about to take the Bodhisattva vow was a potter. So what he did was he kneaded mud and he offered the mud. And with that, he took the Bodhisattva vow. And this, you know, as a child growing up, this is a very strong image which never really left from me. Okay, now, there are two things that I guess we need to pay attention with this sutra. The two terms, kalpa and bhadra, right? Now, the kalpa, let us sort of talk about this a little bit. First of all, kalpa, which is a Sanskrit word, and I guess now it's becoming English term also. That's what I was told. Kalpa is a Sanskrit term, language, obviously coming from India. Now, what does that mean? Indian understanding of time. Now, there's even a joke. Indian time is elastic. You understand? And actually, I'm talking about that. Probably I'm joking, but actually it's not also a joke. Indians have a very, very incredible way of understanding the time. This we need to keep in our head. I mean, I'm not even talking about Buddhism or Buddhist. Indians, they have this idea. So I think kalpa in Hinduism, these days, the Hindu scholars are saying it's a 4.32 billion years. You understand? I'm sure in the audience, there are people who read people like Stephen Hawking, cosmology, evolution theory, etc., etc. And those who are used to that, in their head, this may not work. But this is actually kind of strange. I sometimes think it's really strange why it doesn't fit with a modern mind. Because in the modern world, Einstein is considered very respected, right? I'm talking to the modern people. Einstein is considered very respected. And Einstein himself supposedly have said, time is relative. Relative means what? Relative means not absolute. But the problem is the modern people and the scientists, when they talk about time, they talk and think and have the emotional response to the time as it is absolute. So you see, the Indians are not wrong there. Indian elastic time actually has a kind of a, what do you call it? It has a base. But of course, if you need to catch a flight, if you need to, schedule your, dinner or whatever, of course, it's annoying, right, to say the least. But you know what I mean? The Indian idea of kalpa is something very beyond, conventional thinking, I should say. But as I've said just now, if Einstein said time is relative truth, then we should really follow that, especially if you are a serious scientist. And if you are a serious scientist or whatever, a believer of Einstein, then you should accept that time is not absolute, isn't it? So I just want to tell you this. Okay. Now, let me give you definition of kalpa. Again, this exists in, I think, many of the Hindu scripture and also with Buddhism. And I will extract it from a Buddhist Shastra, but I will sort of modify it so that it is understandable by the modern people. So if you ask a Buddhist, how long is kalpa, right? their answer will be something like this. Pigeon brings a scarf and flies to Kathmandu. Pigeon from probably, I don't know, Goa, let's say, all the way to Kathmandu and touches the tip of the Mount Everest once 100 years, let's say. And this is done every 100 years once. And every time the scarf touches the tip of the Mount Everest, there's a friction. So this then causes the flattening of Mount Everest. This is kalpa, but at the same time, it is also a moment. See, this is how the Indians think. And this is a very specific from the Buddhists. So I think this kind of understanding, because we are talking about a kalpa, this is a eon. We are talking about, because fortunate eon, good eon. So we are talking about eon at the moment. But relatively, generally, there are many different kinds of explanation. Generally, kalpa is a period of time or a period of eon, which is sort of between the creation and the recreation. That is called a kalpa. Okay? So, and this has happened so many times, according to Buddhist cosmology. And long time ago, again, when I said long time ago, you need to keep in mind the pigeon story. You understand? So it's not like a long ago, like 2,500 years ago. It's not like that. And especially, I'm forgetting to tell this, especially this is a Mahayana Sutra. I will come to this later. So long time ago, a creation of the universe happened, the world, the universe, and then it dissolved, supposedly. And when it dissolved, it became lake or an ocean, infinite ocean. And from this ocean, the gods noticed 1,000 lotus bloomed together, 1,002 sometimes. And then gods were like cheering, saying that, the next kalpa or the eon will be the fortunate eon. Predicting, it's a prophecy that there will be the 1,000 Buddha, the arrival of the 1,000 Buddha, and 1,002 Buddha also you could say. Now, as I was saying, this is a Mahayana Sutra, okay? On the top of everything what I just told you about how Indians think about time, literally, on top of that, this is a Mahayana. What makes Maha? This is very important to make note. Maha, I know, historians, they understand the Mahayanas, everything that is sort of started, and prevailed in Nalanda, and then it went to Japan and then went to Tibet and China. They're all Mahayana, like Korea, Mahayana. And then teachings that went to, like Burma, Sri Lanka, that are not Mahayana, those are Charvakayana and so on and so forth. But that's just normal human way of understanding the word Maha. But here, especially since we are talking about a kalpa, eon, and this is important that you know, the word Maha, to make it very, very practical, Maha is really, you need to think out of box. That is Maha. Mahayana people are people who think out of box. Out of box, right? Out of box. If you are thinking conventionally, you are not Mahayana. Conventional, norm, the usual stuff, and you are basically being comfortable with this zone. Not brave. So Maha in this sense is really to think out of the box, right? So stories like what I just told you, okay, one creation, and then it was dissolving, and then the 1,000 lotus arose, and the God said, wow, there will be 1,000 Buddhas. All of this, for a lot of us who are rational oriented, for us, it may be like a fairy tales. But for Mahayana, thinking out of the box people, they will think, it's not necessarily something unbelievable. Between unbelievable and the believable, very, very thin line here. And also it's like, yeah, so this is quite important. Maha, attitude of Maha, the way you think, the attitude, the intention, outlook, the way you look at the world, where you look at to yourself. You see, these Mahayana people, they look at themselves as the Buddha in making, or the raw material of the Buddha. They don't look at themselves as this pathetic, kind of totally doomed, like hopeless person. They think themselves as raw material, ready to be assembled anytime. So, like that, the way they think is different. So, because of that, everything is Maha. Maha view, Maha meditation, Maha action. So, I'm just simplifying all of this. Words like prajna, paramita, transcendence, gone, 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 beyond gone. Why we repeat 4 times? Gate, gate, paragate, parasamgate. Why do we have to repeat? These guys, they really want to gate from the box 4 times. Not just 1 time. Really get out of the box. This is something that you need to hear. You need to have this attitude. If you want to learn Mahayana, if you want to read Mahayana, if you want to be inspired by Mahayana, if you want to really get excited by Mahayana, this you need. If you still are bound by manufacturing date, expiring date, time as absolute, this Fortunate Eon Sutra is just a fairy tales. So, and by the way, I need to point this out. Everything what I say does not mean that to be a follower of a Maha, that you need to be blind, devoted. No, not at all. Actually, the Mahayana people think if you are following some sort of a box, you are then really blindly devoted. You are actually really limited. This is what they think. Okay, so this is just a brief interpretation of the, this is, Bhadra, Kalpa, Sutra, but okay, so the Kalpa, Eon. So just a little bit of a, what do you call it? Introduction of what do we mean by the Eon, okay? Now, what do we mean by fortunate, good? What made this Eon good? Some of you, I'm sure you must say, how can it be good? There's a, like war that's happening right now. We just had a pandemic. We did, like human beings are just terrible, so on and so forth, isn't it? So how can this be fortunate? This is what some of you may be thinking. But see, that kind of measuring is thinking inside the box. When the God saw the 1,000 lotus, he said, wow, the next one is going to be fortunate. Next eon will be the fortunate eon. The reason why they say this is because the next eon, which by the way is now, is going to be blessed by 1,000 people who tells you the truth. That is what makes this eon good. Nothing to do with the economic good, like, okay, everybody, the United Nations has become more powerful, everybody's shaking hand, everybody's hugging each other. There's a nice, like coffee shop somewhere. Nothing like that. There is going to be 1,002 people who will tell the truth. And actually, if I have friends, really devout practitioners, I have heard from them saying that no matter what, where I in my next life, may I never be reborn at a time that is not fortunate eon, because you have no access to the truth. And by the way, just to give you a context, it is quite interesting in the Buddhist cosmology. This fortunate eon, when the Buddhas come, it is actually not the greatest, most beautiful, most exciting time in the world. It's not. Because according to Buddhism, they say when everything is working perfectly, people don't have quest for the truth. People actually will feel longing for the truth when they're a little bit shaky situation. When things are perfect. So anyway, just very simply, maybe we will come to this later, just briefly. What makes something Bhadra? I guess in Sanskrit it means good or fortunate or excellent, is access, availability, teacher, teaching, sangha of something to do with the truth. And we are talking about no mythical, mystical, magical truth. We are talking about raw, mundane, simple, uncontrived truth, such as anicca, dukkha, anatta, shunyata, tathagata garbha, so on and so forth. Okay, so this is sort of a very brief sort of connotation of the Bhadra and Kalpa. In the sutra, that's usually in Buddhism, sutra is referred to the words of the Buddha. Shastra is referred to the words of Buddha's disciple. Okay, now to roughly, and as I said, this is a really big sutra. So first of all, I'm ill-equipped. I'm not a as I said earlier, one need to be at least in the first bhumi to really talk about these sutras. I'm not claiming that I am teaching this, but I will just briefly summarize the sutra. So, like many sutras, this stemmed out of discussion. This sort of came about, like, Hat Sutra, for instance. It was because Shariputra curiously asked a question, and then Avalokiteshvara gave the answer. It's a little bit more than that, this one. Because in the Hat Sutra's case, Buddha wasn't speaking in the beginning. Only much later he said, yes, good. That's it. So confirmation only. Here, actually, Buddha talked right from the beginning. Anyway, Shakyamuni Buddha, he taught, or he initiated this sutra at Vaishali towards the end of one summer retreat. And there was lots and lots of monks. And again, if you read the actual sutra, it has numbers like there's 100,000 monks. There's something like 80 million bodhisattvas, or much more. Again, here, India, number. You understand? But if you can sort of stay out of the box, you will appreciate this. If you are someone who think in terms of cubic meter and all of that, then today you go to Vaishali, you say, oh, where will the, 80 million bodhisattva, how could, where would they sit, so on and so forth. Anyway, among them, a great bodhisattva. Now, this bodhisattva does not come often. It's very rare. But anyway, usually the sutras always gets initiated by people like Manjushri, Subhuti, Ananda, Avalokiteshvara. But here there's a bodhisattva, Supreme Joy, I think his name. Very loosely translated. He was meditating during that time. So he paused, or he sort of rose from the meditation, and together with lots of monks. Oh, I almost forgot. This is something I really want to emphasize. For those who wish to study Buddhism, many times, especially in the Mahayana sutras, audience, it's so important to go through the list of the audience. I know it's very boring. I myself have skipped a lot. For instance, like Avatamsaka Sutra, first several, almost 100 pages is a list of names of who was there. And when I was reading Avatamsaka Sutra before, many times names, like just names. But now I regret. Now, just recently I was reading, and it's fascinating. It's fascinating. And the same thing here. When Bodhisattva Supreme Joy rose from his meditation, together with the monks and other disciples, which includes devas, nagas, rakshasas, and yakshas, ghosts, demons. Now, this is so important. Even a very, very, ordinary being like me, I'm talking to about 8 people here in front of me, and I don't know how many people there. I'm talking to 8 people here. There's Korean, there's Russian, there's Indian, there's Bhutanese. Their upbringing, their culture, and not just that, how many masalas they just ate just before they came to this teaching. Or some of them may have drunk alcohol or chew betel nuts. I don't know. Or what kind of family background, what kind of psyche, what kind of mental state they have. This will make a big difference how they conceive even what I say. So imagine when the Buddha taught this, there was ghosts, yakshasas, nagas. They have a totally different understanding. I mean, just imagine if we could just go inside one of the nagas or the yakshasas or rahulas, their mind, and try to understand how they understood. This is actually something that we keep on missing, but actually really important, I would say. Anyway, the Bodhisattva Supreme Joy, he went to Buddha and asked questions. And he asked 17 questions. Yeah. And I'm not going to go through the 17 questions, all the way, because first of all, they're 17 questions are out of the box questions, you see. And me, I am very deeply inside the box, so I cannot really understand this so much. So yeah, there's 17 questions, and this whole sutra is basically answer to this 17 question. So the Bodhisattva asked Buddha 17 questions, and very difficult to, I told you, I'm not a translator, and the translators have done a great job. Please refer to the sutra itself, but just very briefly for tonight, for the auspicious sake. First question. And I'm translating, I'm really making this very, very, I'm interpreting this in a very, I'm interpreting it very badly. So you'll have to excuse me. And please, I know I'm already misleading a lot of people here, but as I said, I'm not a translator, so I'm really not doing a good job. I will just express what I understood. And not just, I'm not talking about the inability of translating the word, but just inability to understand the actual also. But what I understand, I will try to share. So anyway, the Bodhisattva supreme joy to go to the Buddha and ask, a Bodhisattva, when a Bodhisattva, what does a Bodhisattva have to do, making it very, very crude translation, what should a Bodhisattva do to understand the other sentient beings' mind and action? Actually, it's a very important question. You know, remember leadership training, management training? How should the boss or the manager understand the workers, co-workers, or whatever, you know, the company people, their mind and their attitude? And this, just giving you an example, this is like 10,000 times more. How should a Bodhisattva, what should a Bodhisattva do to understand the mind of the sentient being and their action? That's question number one. And what should, number two, what should a Bodhisattva do to really enter the teaching of the Buddha, meaning understand the teaching of the Buddha? How can what should a Bodhisattva do so that this Bodhisattva can actually enter their mind wholeheartedly, completely, and see whole picture of the Buddha's teaching? And it's so important. Absolutely important this is. Because there's a story like, there's even a story about the Buddha coughed, and doctor hear this, and said, oh, Buddha has a coughing, so he's trying to prepare a medicine. And there's another person who hears this, says, oh, Buddha is giving me the teaching on cause and condition, that when there's a cause and condition, there's a sickness. So it like 4 or 5 different people hear it, and a lot of people got a lot of benefit from just coughing. See, so that kind of, you know, so how should a Bodhisattva, what should Bodhisattva have to understand that, enter the Buddha's word? What should the Bodhisattva do so that a Bodhisattva will refrain from misleading others? This is also big.
Should a Bodhisattva do to refrain from misleading others? Good questions.
For instance, okay, just to give you an example, when somebody like me See, I'm not a Buddha. So when I say to some large audience, everything is impermanent, there's a danger of me misleading people. How? Because I am asserting that there is something that becomes impermanent. That's dangerous. You see, the Tathagatas, the enlightened beings, they don't do this. So how should the Bodhisattva learn to not mislead when they teach? Because beings like us, being ill-equipped beings like us, even if we teach something at glance correct, logical, makes sense, could be very misleading. So how should the Bodhisattva learn this skill of not refraining from misleading people? Okay, this is very, very badly translated. This is a summary. And most of this is also my own interpretation, my own assumption. So I really request everyone here not to trust everything what I say. Just take this as a celebration. At least you are trying, I'm trying. The fourth question. How should Bodhisattva learn to take a teaching literally? So important. Absolutely important. Because as a, if you are not good at that, people will say, oh, but he didn't mean that, How should Bodhisattva learn to take things literally? The fifth question. Some of these are a little difficult to understand, but as I said, this is my summary. How should one not have a veil to the present Buddhas? I don't know what that means. It could mean a lot of things. It could mean, like there's so many Buddhas, there's Buddhas everywhere, but there's a veil. How should the Bodhisattva unveil this, right? How should Bodhisattva get the opportunity to accompany a Buddha, and not only just accompany, but have the confidence to the Dharma that they taught? This is the sixth one. Seventh one. This is a Mahayana, the Mahayana flavor. This is, especially the seventh one, I would say, is such a strong Mahayana flavor. How should Bodhisattva dwell in the worldly life? Really, not just dwell, actually engage in the worldly life. Really, job, family, I don't know, like plotting, scheming, scheduling. How should one really do that? Yet, we live totally stainless from all that. How should a Bodhisattva do that? Eighth, so important, especially for those who are meditating, especially these days, who seem to kind of have come to a taste of meditation, right? Like mindfulness stuff. How should and I want to really translate this properly. How should Bodhisattva enter into this absorption? Not absorption. This, absorption. How, like, I think absorption is good. How should a bodhisattva go into this absorption, yet not reborn or not be born or not basically, not but this word che, which is birth, arise, exist. That's important. So how should a bodhisattva enter into this absorption, yet not be born in the parameter of absorption? Born, exist, love, cozy, not wanting to let go, like protect, hold on to the mindfulness, hold on. Because when you go to the absorption, and then when you dwell in it and when you're born it, then you get to constipation. This is what I don't want. Now getting more and more interesting and more Mahayana flavor now. How should a bodhisattva enjoy and really utilize the Nirvana, utilize the Nirvana or the phenomena of the Nirvana, yet never go to Nirvana? Really, Bodhisattva, out of compassion, they don't want Nirvana. They have bodhisattvas like a Kishti Garba who pray wholeheartedly, please, I don't want to be enlightened until all sentient beings are enlightened, so on and so forth. So how should a bodhisattva learn to dwell in the world of Nirvana, yet not get, let me put it this way. How should a bodhisattva learn to dwell, learn to enjoy and utilize the wealth of the Nirvana, yet not get stoned by Nirvana? I think this is better. Stoned and hooked and tipped, right? Tipsy. How should one do that? The next one is a little bit of a very, very Mahayana now. How should a bodhisattva become arhat or learn the skill and enjoy and utilize the state and the power and the quality of the arhat and the pratyekayana Buddha? How should a bodhisattva do that, but never wish to be arhat and the pratyekayana Buddha? Just don't forget, I said right in the beginning, this is a Mahayana, And then the 11th, how should a bodhisattva have no dullness or distractions, or no dullness or numbness, and numbness and sort of unclarity when it comes to remembering the Buddha. Oh, this is a very big one. This is a really, really big one. We are not only talking about the remembering as in remembering a figure Buddha. We are talking about the Buddha within, etc. Then the 12. This is a little technical, and probably I may not be able to explain everything here, because especially if you need a bit of a understanding of. Can we take a short break? My battery is very low. I need to bring my charger.